King of Public School Board of Education meeting. The board met in closed session under exception C1, C11, C9, and C21. With that, I'd like a roll call.
Mr. Riddle? Mr. McBride?
Here.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Present.
Ms. Lindsay?
Present.
President Ewing?
Here, we do have a quorum. Mr. Riddle is out of town. All other board members are present. With that, I'd like a motion to resume open session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hannah, seconded by Ms. Lindsay. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, we are back in open session. Mrs. Sabecki, if you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so my president's report, just some calendar dates that we need to get set up. So I know we do have both the superintendents and Ms. Vanderbrook's evaluations that need to be scheduled. So we will be meeting sometime in March. So there'll be a survey going out to make sure that we can coordinate dates and make sure we stick with deadlines. Obviously, it is election season, so I encourage everybody here to make sure that you go to some of the events, get to meet the candidates. There are two individuals, myself and Ms. Gonzalez, who are not running for re-election, and two of our board members, Ms. Hannah and Mr. McBride, who are seeking to serve another 4-year term. So make sure that you go out, you hear about, learn about all of the candidates that are involved, and then make the best decision that you feel is best for Waukegan. I'd also like to say Happy Black History Month to everybody here. And we have a ton of Black History events that are going on throughout the district. So I'll just name a few if I can find the email that Mr. Nick. So the big one, or biggest one, the district Black History celebration is on February 21st. Starting at 5:30 p.m. over at Brookside. So looking forward to that event. And then there are some smaller events at all of the different elementary and middle schools. So if you all make the time to get there. And then unfortunately, our community has again been impacted with just fear and violence. I know when we see what's going on in the nation, I do want to commend the administration for taking a proactive stance. We have some mental health services and providers that are in the buildings, and so we just want to make sure that it's good to have them, but that our students know that they can access it. We did have a lot of students who were out last Monday in support of the protests. We also had just a lot of different things that are going on, and so I do want to take a brief moment of silence for just individuals that we lost over this last week, because there were multiple, unfortunately. Thank you. And what we do know is that when we lose people, regardless of how we lose them, is there's an impact and a loss that's felt throughout the community. And so we lost educators, we lost former students, and that's impacted the entire community. So with that, I'd like to cede the rest of my time and turn it over to our student board member.
I don't have anything to present, but thank you for your time, Mr. President.
All right.
You want to speak on the attendance that you were sharing with me?
I can speak on that.
Okay.
But I do want to say one thing, though. Lately at Brookside, we have been looking at all the data, and we have noticed that all the tardies have been lowering down. So that's one good positive thing that's been happening at Brookside.
And what are kids saying about tomorrow?
What's tomorrow?
The web.
Oh, they were all just all the students at like Brookside are just like wondering if like school's gonna get canceled, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know.
The only question, I know you talked about tardies going down. Are there any things that have been implemented that are leading to the decrease in tardies?
I know what one thing happened, like with the decreasing of tardies, was that they removed the hero system. So now, because of that system being shut down, there's been less tardies. And I think now what it is that if you get, I think it's 3 to 5 tardies, you get Saturday detention. I'm pretty sure that's how it is.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I
You
could
say
be
so
wrong.
you don't get tardies, right? So you wouldn't
I'm
know,
not
but
tardy,
understood. Well, thank you for your report out. Any special recognitions, presentations, Ms. Alazakis? No? All right. Then we're going to keep rolling. We have our approval of closed session minutes.
Of open session or closed
Or
session.
item 8A.
Sorry.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the closed session minutes dated March 23rd, 2023, December 2nd, 2024, December 10th, 2024, previously reviewed in closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lindsay,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Then we got item 8B, approval of minutes for the open session meeting of January 14th, 2025.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes for the open session meeting January 14th, 2025.
I motion to approve the minutes with an amendment for technical changes and a statement. Did I do that right, Kathy?
Yes, can you read the
Okay.
statement you'd like added?
I'd like to add to item 10E for youth guidance renewal, just a comment from myself and Mr. Ewing about the program, that if we want to expand services, we also need to fund them. If we want to support more students, we have to be willing to fund the program more.
Second.
We got a motion from Ms. Gonzalez and then a second from Ms. Hand. Any comments, questions, corrections? All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Now, as amended, and we now have opportunity for public comment. So each individual gets 3 minutes. The clock and timer will be along the screens in the room. If you need translation services, you'll get 6 minutes to allow for the translation. We do ask that you refrain from mentioning student and staff member names in your remarks, and we do want to remind all speakers about civility. This is an opportunity for the community to address the board at this time, and there are only 2 names on the list, so I'll call them in order: Andy Freely and Randy Sabecki.
President Ewing, members of the Board of Education, Presidents Placencia and General Counsel Ms. Vanderbrock. My name is Andy Freely, and I am the President of the Waukegan Teachers Council. I'm here tonight because you are once again considering a remedial warning. I want to begin by ensuring that both the board and the public understand the gravity of the board action. It essentially serves as the potential last chance warning. If a teacher violates any part of the warning, they face potential termination. There may also be disciplinary consequences unrelated to the warning itself. My overarching purpose tonight is to highlight to you that your administration has been ignoring and going around contract language as it relates to discipline and due process and parent development the union takes most seriously. Critically, the board's action both at the December meeting and potentially again tonight failed to follow the due process provisions outlined in the collective bargaining agreement. In both instances, teachers were accused of serious charges. However, during the investigation, the initial accusations were unfounded. Yet new potential policy violations were introduced without providing the employees a fair chance to review or defend them against the new allegations. This reeks of trickery and gotcha unfairness, and something of which we believe our members will need to be made aware. In fact, prior to the December meeting, the district's general counsel threatened an unfair labor practice charge against the union simply for attempting to contact the board directly in defense of my member after having to read 465 pages of so-called evidence given to the union after the union had been asking for it for over 3 weeks. The approach is troubling and makes a significant change in the relationship between the parties, and it underscores a pattern of disregarding a basic and contractual guarantee of fairness. Regarding tonight's case, the Director of Human Resources dropped off a draft of the warning letter with my member and another union member, neither of whom had full understanding of what a board warning entails. There was no attempt to communicate with me about the intentions to meet regarding the matter. The director even joked with my officer about how much easier it was for him not to have to deal with me. This is unprofessional behavior and does not respect the role of the union in representing its members. On January 23rd, I made a request of the Director of Human Resources and then the General Counsel to meet with the members so there would be defense and clarity as our due process. It was not until February 6th where I received a response stating that I could send something in through the District Council with caveats and not directly to the board with a deadline of just over 24 hours. It also did not give the member the requested meeting with administration to specifically go over the evidence for the new charges. For all these reasons, I urge the school board to table the remedial warning until the contractual due process is satisfied, and then meet with me and my designees so that we can have an honest conversation about the growing concerns with your seeming disregard for the basic due process, a fundamental constitutional right found in the 5th and 14th Amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freely. Mrs. Becky?
All right. Good evening, everyone.
You got it.
Did it turn off? Do a mic check before you start.
Can we reset the clock, please?
Yeah, no, we're good.
You might drop too soon, Mr. Sabaki.
Hello.
There we go.
All right. First thing I want to talk about tonight, agenda item 13D, settlement agreement of employee 20049. I'm also asking that one to be tabled because that gives the public no information as a settlement agreement. It says there's going to be a fiscal impact, but it gives no amount, nothing for the community to see what you guys are going to vote on it tonight, and we have no information on this agenda item. Second thing I want to talk about is the presentation tonight for the data coming up. Personally, this should be done at a student achievement meeting so they can be back and forth. We talk about how long these board meeting goes. Those student achievement meeting is the correct place for that to be. So I got a couple things because I don't know if the public's going to get to talk, so I'm going to ask them now, looking at that. Slide 12 says, by June 2025, we'll be the most literate city, Waukegan. We're going to achieve 60% mastery 80% of the time, as evidenced by curriculum-embedded assessment data. So the first question is, when and how do the parents see this data? Why are we using curriculum-embedded assessments and not the IRA data? The word parents, and then another thing on that slide towards the end, question it says, when we get to the ACT scores, if you look at those scores and you do the math and add it all up, so what we're saying is average 78% of all high school students will get less than an 18 on the ACT. What average ACT score is it to get in college? What's the average minimum? It's 19.5 to get into college. And we're saying 78% are going to get an 18 or less. So, and that's according to the Princeton review as the 19.5. So that's just some things to keep in mind when we go over this assessment stuff. That's it tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Becky. This concludes the public comments, so we do appreciate all those who came out to speak. We can get the agenda back up. So we are at item 12A, approval of the Lewis Learning Partner revision.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the revision to John R. Lewis Middle School Learning Partner contract with Capturing Kids' Hearts in the amount of $3,600.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Ms. Anna. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay, and then Ms. Fabian.
So based on the paperwork, this training was held July 1st of 2024. My concern is a repeated concern, not just from me, but from other members of the board. We are now at February 11th. Why has it taken it this long for the board to become aware that this increase to pay an invoice for services rendered is coming 6-7 months late? Or after the fact, maybe late's the wrong word. And my fear is that this is a continuing trend. If we want these meetings to be more efficient, we need better timing with these items.
So yeah, that's a great question. So the initial budget was for 70,000. So whereas the training opportunity happened earlier, the overall package that they were approved with the partner, this, after where we're at in the school year, it exceeded it. So that was one of the pieces. There was just an adjustment based on the overall amount that was initially budgeted for.
I think there was a misunderstanding of my question. My question is, why are we just finding out about it now? So I understand that they had, I think it was 9 additional staff members. Yes, 9 additional staff members attended. So I don't have a problem with the overage that we have to pay. My concern is with the timing of this information.
I can go back and find out why right now, but I'm assuming it's based. I'll just come back with the answers.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Fabian?
It was similar because obviously they had to sign up the 9 extras, so we should have had more time. But also, I do see it as Title I. Is this part of their site-based budgeting? And is, those funds were covered then? We had enough funds to cover that.
I believe this was the money that came from ISB directly related to the, yes.
Okay.
So it's covered through that, yes. I'll have to find out about the timing though. I'll come back with an answer for that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We're at item 12B, approval of the wraparound services memorandum of understanding with Grow Community.
It is recommended by the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to enter to the memorandum of understanding with Grow Community in the form presented, providing space for appointment-based mental health services by Grow Community at the Wraparound Center.
Motion?
Motion
Second.
by Ms. Lindsay, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I do see we have some representatives here. Do we want to come brag a little bit about the great things we're doing?
What they're, what's good, what are they doing, what the service has been provided.
It is, I mean, you can ask the question.
I asked, can they brag about what they're doing?
That's the question.
That's the setup. Brag.
If they could share what they're proposing to do. In the
Well, we're the
Wraparound
best.
Center.
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Rashad Media. I'm the Regional State Director for Grow Community. So I get the opportunity to work with these individuals here and being able to provide services in our Waukegan area. And so to brag about what we get a chance to do, I'm going to be here all day because I just love what we do. And I just love the fact that we get the opportunity to work with the Wraparound Center and being able to just provide that resource for our young men here in Waukegan. And so I am going to let my incredible therapists be able just to brag on what they're doing here in the city and what they get to tell me about all the time. So I'm going to let Jamin have the mic. Yes.
Hello, I am Jamin Barconia. I am a therapeutic mentor with Grow Community. And real quick, I would just want to share like a quick synopsis of what Grow is and what we're doing out in the community. We are a mental health organization specifically dedicated to supporting boys and men struggling that are from those socioeconomical communities that are struggling with behavioral issues or have impact with the criminal justice system, to provide that support for these boys and men, to help them understand, themselves, to help them grow into strong, responsible men, to help them address those traumas that they've kept buried inside. And so that's where we're here to provide that clinical therapy support through our cognitive behavioral therapy. That is our base, but we also utilize many other modalities as well, such as neurofeedback and solution-focused therapy, and other modalities as well, neurotherapy, other modalities to be able to reach the demographic that we're working with. We also have culturally responsive staff. The Waukegan community, we know, is very diverse. So we have culturally reflective staff to respond to the diverse needs of our boys and men in our community. We also are able to provide that community support component as well. We're able to connect with our guys on a different level. Therapy doesn't have to be face-to-face in an office. Therapy could be conducted at a park. Therapy could be conducted at a nature preserve. We could walk around and participate in community support intervention, and they're able to get that additional support that you can't always provide in an office. That one-on-one mentorship, the resume building, the career exploration, partnering with other community organizations to be able to provide the resources that we can't provide. So overall, what we're doing in Waukegan is we're really providing the support for those who are overlooked, or our young boys and our young men in our community who grow up without fathers, or who grow up and with these struggles that we face. Now, supporting our minority men and low socioeconomic backgrounds is that's our specialty. It's not our limitation, right? Trauma is universal. We're working with everyone in the Waukegan community to be able to provide these services. And then I'll let Elvis introduce himself and kind of add a little bit more as well.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Elvis Stillett. I am a therapist with Grow Community. To add to what Jamin said, we are in Waukegan. We are two individuals who are prepared to provide services to our boys and men, not just in the school system, but the entire community. Something that we are very pleased to know as we are working to establish and formalize this partnership with the wraparound services is exactly what we're here for. We're here as an organization to provide a wraparound support to the individuals that we serve. So whether it be in the schools, outside of the schools, we're here to ensure that we're providing those services to the community of Waukegan.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I would like to add just one more thing real quick. Okay, I'm sorry. The great thing about GROW is the participants are responsive to our services. And that is very important, because therapy has a stigma. Therapy has a taboo. And we're able to break those stigmas and break those barriers by them seeing someone who looks like them be able to communicate what it is. And then so yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Use the mic, Ms.
Just a question. You guys make me motivated.
Thank you.
With your energy. I feel it. But I'd like to ask, how are you going to attract the individuals that you are going to work with?
Good evening, everyone. Bridget Dodson. So currently GROW they're in some of our middle schools, so there's already that connection, those connections that are made, as well as utilizing the referral system and process through the wraparound. We currently have students waiting, hoping for the approval tonight to refer them to GROW. So we're going to utilize our referral system. They have their outreach already in place. Again, they're already in our schools, in our middle schools. And so we're hoping to, as discussed in my update from this last November, to expand and broaden our scope and reach. to support our community.
Okay. Ms. Fabian and then Ms. Gonzalez.
So if an individual wanted to self-refer, they would go through the wraparound center
Yes.
essentially?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez.
How large is your staff, and how are you guys going to balance the work in the schools with the wraparound center?
I think that's my question. And so currently we have 2 therapists here and their supervisor, which is Marcellus Pollards. He's currently not here. He's our Northern Region supervisor. And so part of that is the goal is we measure the need. And so we want to make sure that one thing we highlight with Grow is that we don't have a waiting list. And so as the need grows, I'm able to hire more individuals to provide those services. So I'm able to get more talent out here to be able to be an impact to these communities. So as they come in, I can hire as quickly as they come. So that's the great thing I love to do, is just being able to give individuals opportunity to really connect with their community, being able to impact the community the way they want to.
Ms.
And
Lindsay. Oh, sorry, you had another question.
Well,
Go
the
ahead.
schedule, how will you? It's appointment basis, but are there certain days where you guys are gonna be kind of like anchoring at the wraparound center?
I know we are still figuring all that out as of right now.
But well, here, what's important, especially in therapeutic service, is that continuum, that consistency. And so we've discussed that, and what we're looking at is that we are going to have representation, whether they're in the building itself or whether they're in one of our schools on a full-time basis. So to start with, as they just mentioned, we're starting with 3 therapists, which is great, considering we do have 2 service agencies in place at the wraparound currently. So it's important for us to have that continuity and that consistency.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dotson.
Ms. Lindsay.
I have one follow-up, and it's with no hate or shade attached to it. But we've had several conversations within the district about hiring, especially when it comes to school psychologists or other mental health professionals, counselors, et cetera. So the community needs to have trust that if they come, there will be someone that is there. So when you say you can hire them as fast as we need them, can you just confirm for us, like, your hiring track record? Like, have you had to quickly fill positions in the past, and what was your success rate? Yeah, for sure.
The answer is that I wanted to just reiterate that we currently have 3 therapists ready to go.
Right.
Since the wraparound center has been open, the end of June, I've not seen us go beyond that number yet. So and I'm well aware, being in the district this last decade, that has been an issue with my own former department of not being able to supply the need. But I'm confident where we're starting now, we're much further ahead of the game than we have typically been. But now you can respond to that.
Just to answer your question, I think it's really important to be able to highlight the essential need of what individuals need in Waukegan. And so obviously I've come to learn that different areas that I work within the state, one being here is that we have a high number of English second language learners. So I'm making sure that we have individuals who are obviously Spanish speaking. So Elvis kind of came in and blessed us with being able to provide those services. We've had individuals that I to be honest, being transparent, I've had individuals who I have hired who weren't a good fit, and I had to make sure that at the end of the day, like, these kids are my priority. Like, and that's my biggest things. Like, I tell them all the time, Grow is a great place, and I love to be able to provide mentorship and growth with them professionally, but these kids are my priority. So I drive here. I just drove here an hour just to be able to show that I'm committed. I'm committed to making sure that we have competent individuals who are ready to work, and being able to provide that is me taking that time and finding them, weeding them out, and making sure that they're going to be here to stay. Because one thing that I'm very, very big about is consistency, right? We want to make sure that they're consistent, right? We want to make sure that they're coming in, they're going to be there for them, they're not leaving. That's why we have relentless engagement, because our relentless engagement is that we're not going anywhere. We know that people are used to people leaving, coming in and out of their lives. I'm here to stay. I'm going to bug you. I'm going to be here. What are you doing? What do you got going on? Just checking in on you. And so if these individuals are not willing to do that, then Grow may not be the place for them, and that's okay, and that's all right, because there are people out here who want to love on these boys, who want to provide that structure, that safety, that resource. And so I know it can't be 100 Rashads, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that I'm going to try to find anyway. So I'm very big about that's a high priority for me as being a regional state director.
And Rashad, to be very transparent, I love that, and I'm very excited, right? Because my question is hoping that we have more of our community members
Yes.
tapping into this. And like
100%.
with this vibe and this approach,
Yes.
hopefully that resonates with our community.
Yes.
And they actually start to seek out those your resources, because there is a huge stigma, and we're trying to break past that.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you say that if they're essentially not here to be here, you're kind of done with it, I love that, because if you're not here to serve our kids, you're not doing them what the justice that they need. So I appreciate your answer. Thank you. Rashad? Jamin? Elvis? Jamin.
Ms. Fabian?
So I agree, there is still a stigma. I think the one thing about COVID was that it kind of started highlighting that everyone needed some mental wellness in their life and to be more mindful. So I think one highlight of going through the pandemic was that we're able to see more therapeutic services and highlighting that need. And I'm very big on that. But the second part, I also don't want to miss out the point that when we're hiring as a district, we're looking for different certifications and qualifications than when we're hiring for Grow. So the recruitment of therapists for an agency like Grow is different than a recruitment for a school district. There are more certifications and other things that they have to have when we're looking internally. So it's not necessarily comparing apples to apples when we're looking at hiring.
I understand that, but within the field itself,
Yeah,
it's still drastic. So we're seeing it in the public education sector. I'm sure you're seeing it within your realm as well. So I'm not saying it's an apples to apples, but the hiring concerns are still there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all. And the only thing I'll say is I'm excited to see the services grow at the Wraparound Center. As Ms. Director Dotson mentioned, there are other relationships that we have, and what I liked is to hear your specialty. It's because we're not just bringing in, because there are tons of great organizations that are doing mental health services, but they're being brought in for a specific group to solve a specific need, right? So currently to the community, there are, I don't want to call it, and you'll correct me, Ms. Dotson, because my terminology, but drug prevention services, right? Or substance abuse counseling that's happening at the Wraparound Center.
Sexual abuse, domestic violence, and general mental health.
In general mental health, right? And so now this is another layer of that, in addition to some of the supports and resources that we already have in the school as well. So thank you all, and look forward to seeing what you do. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Pass.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries.
We didn't vote.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
I'm usually last, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
Now, item approved, motion passed. All right, item 12C, retroactive approval of change order number 2 for Washington campus retaining wall and exterior concrete ward.
It is recommended that the Board of Education ratify the administration's approval of increasing the board-approved project budget for the Washington campus retaining wall and exterior concrete work from $475,393.43 to $487,494.46, an increase of $12,101.03.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hannah. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yes, I have a question
Go ahead, Ms. Hannah. Mike, please.
regarding the change orders and change orders totaling $101,905.38. That's just for this particular project?
The answer to that question is yes.
Why is there so much, so many change orders?
There was a lot of deterioration to that area, so once they opened it up, that retaining wall, that's why you see a lot of the change orders, is because they didn't know they were getting into, and then when they got into it, it got more complex.
And so before any of this work was done, our architects didn't go in and look at this?
They did.
And they didn't see the need to dig deeper into this project? Because for one project, $100,000 in change orders, that's a lot.
That's correct.
And that kind of needs I'm just disappointed in the amount of these change orders for one project. And
Ms. Fabian?
I guess to clarify, Ms. Hannah's frustration is saying that we didn't know that it was going to be as extensive as it was. Is that because visually we could not see that it was going to be extensive until you got middle of the project, or is it just somebody's oversight? Like, you know, when you're remodeling your house and you don't realize there's black mold behind your wall until you tear down the wall.
Right.
Versus somebody had a suspicion, they should have put a contingency for that, but it just
Right.
was oversight. I think that's what the frustration is.
Sure.
Is it something that we just could not have foreseen because you don't know until you actually rip it out and see the actual damage?
So those questions, I can always come back to you for those answers, because prior to this current position, I was not in that capacity with those. So I can come back to answer all of those questions if need be.
Thank you. We do
Especially
have
with
Mr.
regards to the amounts you're talking about, Ms. Hannah.
But we do have Mr. Moulton here.
All right. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, staff, and community. So to help assist in answering the question, we did come forward to the board in August of 2024, August 27th, with change order number 1, which we've attached to the agenda item, that discusses a lot of items that were, most of them were unknown, but some of them were at the request of the district by the at the time by the current staff member in charge of this project. And we have them itemized: replacement of deteriorated concrete adjacent to the transformer, a lot of deteriorated concrete around the tunnel, as well as additional asphalt repairs. So the original change order brought forward was approximately $88,000. Now, just recently, the district became aware of an approval from July in the amount of $12,101, which is change order number 2 in front of you this evening. And even though that change order was approved by the district at that time in the field by the staff member prior to Mr. Briner's involvement in this project, the work was recently done, which is why change order number 2 is dated for December, and we were made aware of this within the last 2 weeks. So that's why we're bringing it forward. It was approved timely at the time, and we've identified the backfill for the storm line replacement, which was part of change order 1, as well as the replacement of deteriorated cast iron downspout. So that is what encompasses change order number 2, just to shed some light on that.
And
Go, Ms. Hannah. No.
no, and so these are the last change orders, we hope, for this particular project.
Is the project completed?
The project is completed. We believe these are the last change orders associated with this project. We believe and we hope, but yes. And we are at a point now where we're ready to pay off the project, and this approval is required in order for us to do that. The work has been completed.
And we've also, and I mean, I'll be transparent for the community and the board. We also have improved processes to make sure that as these change orders are being implemented or requested by staff members, that they are receiving the proper board approvals before the work is being completed.
Absolutely.
And can I add to that, Mr. President?
Ms. Gonzalez.
That this ties, and I won't say too much, right, Kathy, but this ties to a conversation that we had in closed session about the then staff member, right? Potentially?
That is correct. And at the time that we came in August, we were not aware of change order 2 existed.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion in a second. Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are now at item 13B, settlement agreement with employee number 20049. Oh, I'm sorry, item 13A, authorization to issue a notice to remedy tenured teacher.
It is recommended that the Board of Education issue a warning letter to tenured teacher concerning charges that are considered remediable and require the employee to remediate such behaviors in order to avoid dismissal pursuant to 105 ILCS 24-12 D in parentheses.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McBride. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah, I am, Mr. President, in light of the union president coming forth and asking us to table this, I am going to ask that this be tabled until we can get to some kind of information based on what he was saying to us, and so I'm asking that this be tabled.
So there's a motion and a second. Do either of you withdraw your motion?
Is everyone in agreement that that's going to change the vote?
I think what we're looking for is confirmation that due process was followed, just because it was a serious allegation that it was not.
That's right. Thank you.
So, at the request of the superintendent as well as Ms. Fabian's request, I will confirm that we have a difference of opinion than the union with respect to due process and whether it was provided. The union has had an opportunity to weigh in on this situation before you this evening, and you were given information to the same extent that we were.
So I guess, and I do apologize, but the legalese, what you're saying is this is the first time that you're hearing these objections raised? Okay, so with that being the case and with us just hearing it tonight, then I believe that it would be prudent.
Let me rephrase. There was a conversation that took place with the union.
Mm-hmm.
They were given an opportunity to provide their concerns in writing very specifically, and they did not provide any. The first we heard of these concerns from that lens was in public comment.
So given our relationship and wanting to come up with a resolution, again, I don't think it would change the recommendation, right? What I think they're arguing is a process piece, and given that this is a tenured teacher and this is I think an important step and one that we have been using more frequently, I would support that we hold it over until our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion.
You don't have to, but yeah, you got to get a second. But yeah, we got one withdrawal. All right, so we got two withdrawals, so we'll carry that item over. Give us time to confer with the union and get that request and their objections submitted in writing. Right, Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, we now have item 13B. It's a settlement agreement with employee number 20049.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the settlement agreement with employee number 20049 in the form presented by the General Counsel, the fiscal impact totaling $22,500.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez,
Second.
seconded by Mr. McBride. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Can we just confirm that we'll update the amount for public transparency after the vote?
Yes, we can correct that in the documentation. It also will be recorded in the minutes that the motion as amended by the superintendent's reading.
All right, and then to talk about the public comment piece, there wouldn't be any other information because of the confidentiality of the settlement. So but the amount, and we will. Yep,
Yeah.
understood.
Well, apologies, Board President, and can we clarify that this was unintentional and an oversight in the posting and was not meant to be kept from the public?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item 13C, personnel for 2/11/2025. Yep.
For the public, the individual that is involved in this the name is confidential under the law. Therefore, we're not identifying the name. I can identify it as a non-union administrator position.
Thank you. All right, now we are at item 13C for personnel for 2/11/2025.
It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendations to approve the appointments, retirements, retirement extensions, requests, and accept the resignations as found on schedules F1002, L949, and G660.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez,
Second.
seconded. Was that Ms. Fabian? Any comments or questions on the motion?
I'm just concerned about one of the names on the personnel agenda. However, because it is personnel, I will defer the conversation until we talk about it in closed session further. But I just want to make it known that I do have reservations simply because of an exiting letter that was received.
Thank you, Ms. Adler.
And then I just want to add thank you to HR that they're still pushing initiatives. We're finding people mid-year, especially those crucial roles that we were just talking about with social workers and psychologists.
Thank you, Ms. Fabian. Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Pass.
President Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries.
I know.
At this time, I'd like to introduce.
Yeah, let's go through this. Yep.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Todd Smith, who previously served as a truancy officer at AOEC. He will now serve as the educational safety specialist here at Lincoln Center with a starting salary of $60,000. Congratulations, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Where do we get that shirt? Congratulations.
Yeah, I'll come back to it, Ms. Anna. All right, we had 16A, approval of resolution abating working cash fund.
It is It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education approve the resolution of abating the working cash fund in the amount of $29,790,000 to the operation and maintenance of capital projects fund, plus an additional $800,000 to the bond and interest fund.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Ms. Lindsay. Any
Committee, I cannot remove any money from the working cash fund unless there is a resolution that is approved by the board. As you all know, we just recently did the $30 million bond, and so it was a working cash fund bond, so the money is deposited there, but it cannot be removed for capital projects or any other identified need, and in this particular case, it was capital projects, unless the board approves the resolution. And then the $800,000 goes into debt service so that we could pay for the bond interest.
So this money is being transferred into operation and maintenance for capital projects. Has the capital projects already been identified? Or are these monies going for something in the future? Or are we completing something now?
Yes. Some of this money has been used for expenses that are capital projects that was previously approved, but we also know that we have a long list of capital projects, and so this was a stopgap so that we can preserve some of our resources that are in the education fund and the other funds that would otherwise have to be moved into capital projects. And so the list of projects that was presented when we did the bond are those that we expect to use the money for, unless there's a change in the Capital Development Committee.
And those changes will be brought to the board if and when they happen.
Absolutely, because all of the capital projects are brought to the board for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Polk. Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
I pass.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. All right, we got item 16B, ratification of the first processing of February 2025 board bills, manual check request payments, and Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of January 22nd, 2025 through February 4th, 2025.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education ratify the first February 2025 processing of board bills, manual check request payments, and Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of January 22nd, 2025 through February 4th, 2025. The accounts payable board payments for the period of January 22nd, 2025 through February 4th, 2025 totals $1,437,188.42. The manual check request payments for the period of January 22nd, 2025 through February 4th, 2025 total $2,703,885.93. The Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of January 22nd, 2025 through February 4th, 2025 totals $2,651,848.54.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Gonzalez, seconded by Ms. Fabian. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Pass.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Pass.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. 17A, committee reports.
I got, we had a wellness committee, and we are currently looking at, currently looking at our inspirational posters that are going to be present in the schools, and our student board member, we wanted input from students to see, instead of the adults picking the posters, we wanted the input from our students, because they're the ones that are going to be looking at them every day. And so we presented some of them to the student board member. She's looked at them. She liked a couple. We're going to invite her to a wellness committee meeting and get more input from her at the next meeting. But she saw a couple posters that she really liked, and that will get passed on to the wellness committee, and we will go from there, because we're trying to put the inspirational preventative posters in all of our middle schools and our high schools about vaping. What else is it? Vaping, the alcohol use, cigarette smoke, all of those things that are harmful for students and stuff. So we will continue to report out on how that is going, and through the wellness committee, in conjunction with the Lake County Health Department, we are gathering the posters. And so if the board would like to see the posters, let me know, and I can have Ms. Dobbs send them to you so that you all can look at them too.
I would recommend Ms. Hannah, once the students select them and you guys have a recommendation on which posters to adopt, just bring those in for a special update, or you could even do it during your committee report.
Okay, sounds good.
Ms. Lindsay.
So for the Equity Advisory Council meeting, we were given the same update that the board received with regard to the RFP process for our African American Male Achievement Initiative for those groups. We also have a call to action to refer anyone for the manager of special initiatives. So the job description is posted out there. So if you know someone who would be a good fit to take over that role, that'd be really helpful within the district. And then another thing that I haven't seen come up agenda-wise that I think is just feedback for the superintendent and legal is if we can get an update on the equity policy and where we stand with that, that would be really great. I think those are the big highlights, to keep it short.
Thank you.
I have one other I forgot about. My Coalition for Literacy committee, and we got some good news regarding the use of Amira here in our district. And
that's the AI tutor?
Yeah, that's the AI reading tutor, and it's being used in some of the schools, and according to the Literacy Coalition, and I'm going to get all of the data sheets so that that I can pass it on to the superintendent, and then you can look at it and put all of it in context, because the one sheet, the one chart it says something, but it doesn't explain everything. And so I do have that request from the chairman of the Literacy Council to get that to me, and I'm expecting it sometime this week, and I would pass that on. But the bottom line is that the reading tutor, the AI reading tutor, is very helpful, and it's working for the students. So you heard me, Mr. Dr. Brown, that I am going to get all that information, and then you can look at it, okay? But it is working. They were very excited to tell me that out of the, I think it's either 7 or 8 schools that that were using the Amira, that Waukegan was the highest and that had achieved the most with that. So that it was something, and I'm hoping that we possibly, after we get the data and look at it, that we can expand that reading tutor a little bit more.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Any other committee reports? Delegates report?
Not at this time, except if hopefully everybody is signed up for the March 12th dinner, Lakes Division dinner, and hopefully everybody can come so that we can get some points and maybe get recognized. But everyone has to be in attendance. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Superintendent's report.
At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Jonathan Brown and Ms. Jennifer Rice to the podium so that we could have a review of our middle of the year data. Dr. Brown, I love the shirt.
In
Okay, good evening. The presentation has been recorded, so we'll let that play, and then we'll be ready for questions.
Good evening, Superintendent Placencia, President Ewing, members of the board, and Waukegan community. I am Dr. Jonathan Brown, Director of Assessment and Data. Tonight, I will provide a review of our middle of the year achievement data. We are excited to begin to report on student progress using course-based Tier 1 assessment results. As instruction happens, students are assessed throughout the semester. These Tier 1 assessments are meant to measure smaller bites of student understanding as a direct result of instruction. We will explain more about this further into the presentation. For today, our focus will be on math and reading performance in various grades across the district. We will review Tier 1 assessment results as well as interim assessment results. With each presentation, we start with a look at our students' attendance at each level across the district. The data reflects attendance through January 20 of each year and show an increase for each of those years. Our district average hit above 90% so far this year. Freshmen on track is a metric that we report because it is closely linked to our graduation rate. The rates listed are from internal high school preliminary calculations with data through mid-January of each year. At the end of the year, students identified as on track have earned at least 5 full-year course credits, that's 10 semester credits, and have earned no more than 1 semester F in a core course. Core courses include English, math, science, or social science. Now let's turn to our Tier 1 curricular measures, starting with some background information. Our district's vision statement reads, Waukegan Community School District 60 is a diverse, world-class educational institution that engages, equips, and empowers all children to be successful change agents in an ever-changing global society. Our district started our Tier 1 initiative as a direct result of our vision statement. In order to empower our children to be successful change agents in an ever-changing global society, they must graduate from our schools ready. Instruction that gets them ready depends on Tier 1 being effective. Tier 1 is our focus and priority. In Tier 1, all students receive instruction with an evidence-based, scientifically researched core program. Tier 1 is synonymous with Waukegan's core reading or math curricula that are aligned with Illinois state standards. Waukegan's Tier 1 initiative is research-based, focused on the following. Tier 1 is considered effective when 80% of students reach mastery. The most effective intervention is a highly effective first teach. Effective and efficient Tier 1 enables Tiers 2 and 3 to provide appropriate intervention. And in turn, Tiers 2 and 3 supports are intended to support Tier 1 proficiency. Tier 1 goals have been set focused on students, educators, and leaders in the district. Goal 1 involves every student receiving high-quality, evidence-based instruction. Goal 2 involves every educator being prepared and supported so that they can deliver high-quality, evidence-based instruction. Goal 3 involves every leader being equipped to create and sustain equitable conditions for high-quality, evidence-based instruction to occur. Waukegan's implementation plan to achieve these goals includes many actions with a few listed on the right. Today, we are reviewing MOI data with an introductory focus on Tier 1 data that is part of our balanced assessment system. Waukegan chooses to collect data according to the decisions that need to be made. Decision-driven data collection. We look to collect reliable and valid data to help determine how students are performing. You are familiar with us reporting interim NWEA and State of Illinois performance figures, which we still will do, but Tier 1 curriculum embedded assessments are the closest data points to the classroom. These can be a powerful tool for teachers and grade level teams as they plan for instruction. Here we have a view of many of the Tier 1 curricula from which we will collect student performance data. In the elementary grades, we have our CKLA Caminos knowledge building curriculum, where we teach and assess reading comprehension. In CKLA Skills, 95%, and Taller, the focus is on teaching foundational literacy skills. In the middle grades, Expeditionary Learning teaches and assesses English language arts, while LIFT does the same for our ESL students. Common assessments are in the process of being created for all high school courses. This is an example of how K through 5 Tier 1 performance data is viewed on our internal dashboard. The scores from all assessments a student has completed in each category or subject area are averaged to produce a single score, which is then assigned to a performance band. This approach helps to reflect similar interpretations across all assessments in use. During this presentation, we will display local Tier 1 assessments, as well as the nationally normed NWEA, DIBELS, and pre-ACT interim assessments. It is important to understand that while all have performance levels listed that help to describe student performance. These performance levels across assessments do not line up or are equal to each other. Now let's start by looking at our Tier 1 math measures. Everyday Mathematics version 4 is the math curriculum we use for elementary school. We are currently collecting unit assessment data to track student performance. As with other data points shown in previous presentations, student scores are divided into performance levels. For Tier 1 data, the green and the blue are performance levels that describe a minimum level of proficiency and above. Our EM4 data here shows 3 out of 5 grade levels with at least 25% of students' scores averaging proficient or higher. That is the green or the blue. Students with scores averaging in the red performance level for Tier 1 assessments indicate a very high need for additional supports. Our intention with Tier 1 is to have it provide high-level instruction where at least 80% of our students find success. We are looking for evidence that through our Tier 1 assessments, blue and green, we are also looking to our interim assessments to validate student progress prior to students taking the state assessment. Here, we have our Tier 1 EM4 data next to our interim NWEA data for grades 1 through 5. As mentioned before, the colors may be similar, but do not correspond directly. What we want to notice is how close the proportions of students are between the two measures in green and blue. This is our first year reviewing these together, but remember, our Tier 1 performance informs our interim assessment performance, which also informs our state assessment performance. Here we will review data from our NWEA interim assessment looking at growth over the past year by grade level. Students that took the NWEA interim math test this winter have scores from this winter and last winter shown. The bubble on the left represents the median score for the group at each term. Our current first graders improved their performance on average from the 42nd percentile last year to the 47th percentile this year. This means that half of the students tested scored at or above the 47th percentile this winter. In second grade, we see a similar amount of growth from the 36th to the 41st percentile, and also an increase in the proportion of students scoring in the top 2 performance levels. Here we have grades 3 and 4, both showing increases in performance. Next, we have grades 5 and 6. 5th grade increased, while 6th grade's average performance remained the same. Here we see grades 7 and 8, both with increases in average performance. So, in looking at our Tier 1 math performance, overall, current first and second grade students are showing the highest levels of proficiency in Tier 1 math assessments. 55% and 38% have unit assessment scores that average at the proficient level or higher. In reviewing our interim NWEA data from winter 2023 to winter 2024, the median NWEA math achievement percentile increased for every grade level except for our current 6th grade students whose median stayed the same. The median test percentile increased by 5 percentile points from our last winter to this winter for our current first, second, and eighth grade students, I'm sorry. First, second, and eighth grade students. Now, our Tier 1 reading performance. We start with our foundational skills curricular measures from CKLA Skills, which is taught in English, and our Spanish phonics curricular measures. Performance to date shows 47% or more of students in kindergarten through first grade are averaging proficient levels in CKLA Skills. Over 60% of first grade students are averaging proficient levels in Taller Spanish phonics, while fewer than 20% are in kindergarten. CKLA Knowledge is our reading comprehension curriculum that all students in kindergarten through fifth grade participate in. This is our first year. To date, over 40% of kindergarten through first grade students are averaging proficient level scores, while 24% of second grade students average proficient level scores. In grades 3 through 5, we see 8 to 10% of third and fourth graders averaging proficient level scores at this time. 19% of fifth graders are doing the same. With our advanced foundational skills curriculum for third through fifth graders, we see between 18 and 32% of students averaging proficient levels. Turning to our middle grades Tier 1 assessments, we see 45% of eighth graders averaging proficient level scores in ELA, 32% in seventh grade, and 19% in sixth grade. 21% of students enrolled in Spanish language arts are averaging proficient level scores. Assessments for students in seventh and eighth grade will be added in the coming year. Again, our intention with Tier 1 is to have it provide high-level instruction where at least 80% of our students find success. We are also looking at our interim assessments to validate student progress prior to students taking the state assessment. Here, we have our Tier 1 foundational skills reading data next to our interim DIBELS and Taller data for grades kindergarten through second. As mentioned before, the colors may be similar, but do not correspond directly. What we want to notice is how close the proportions of students are between the two measures in green and blue. This is our first year reviewing these together, but remember, our Tier 1 performance informs our interim assessment performance, which also informs our state assessment performance. Here we have our reading comprehension curricula next to our NWEA interim assessment performance. Grades 3 through 5, CKLA Knowledge, and grades 6 through 8, Expeditionary Learning. Social studies and science courses utilize common assessments and are reported on our Tableau dashboard as seen here. In science, 26% of students have scores averaging in the proficient level, while 17% of social studies scores do the same. Now, our NWEA reading interim assessment performance. The bubble on the left represents the median score for the group of students at each term. Our current third graders improved their performance on average from the 22nd percentile last year to the 30th percentile this year. This means that half of the students scored at or above the 30th percentile this winter. In fourth grade, we see growth from the 22nd to the 26th percentile, and also an increase in the proportion of students scoring in the top 2 performance levels in both grades. Grades 5 and 6 show similar patterns of a decrease in performance, each from the 30th percentile to the 29th percentile. Grades 7 and 8 both show increases of 6 percentile points. In reviewing our Tier 1 performance data, we saw kindergarten and first grade students showed the highest levels of proficiency, with 52% of monolingual students and 42% of dual language students averaging proficient levels. We also saw 37% of kindergarten through second grade students and 31% of 6th through 8th grade students show proficiency on Tier 1 reading comprehension assessments to date. They're all shown in purple on the slide. Our interim assessment performance showed current third grade students with a large jump from last winter to this winter, with their median percentile increasing by 8. Current 7th and 8th grade students also showed significant gains, with their median percentile increasing by 6. Lastly, we will end with our high school interim assessment performance using the pre-ACT. Recall that this year the State Board of Education is implementing the change to the ACT suite of assessments for accountability at the high school level. As we did with the previous accountability assessment, SAT, we provided our students and staff with a preview of what can be expected during spring testing. This fall, this was done using the pre-ACT for grades 9 through 11. The ACT assessments are divided into 4 subject areas: English, reading, science, and math, with an external writing prompt component that will be required. Here we have our English test results. For the pre-ACT, we are reporting using the performance levels describing whether student scores are on target for hitting the benchmark score in that area on the 11th grade ACT. The benchmark scores for ACT are predictive of first-year college success. Across all grades, 29% of our students are on target for meeting ACT benchmarks in English. On the reading test, we have 17% of students testing as on target to hit ACT reading test benchmarks. In math, we have approximately 8% of students testing as on target to hit ACT benchmarks. And lastly, in science, our high school student results are showing that 7% of students are on track to meet ACT science benchmarks. In switching to the ACT test, attention can turn to the overall composite score that ACT provides. ACT does not provide a benchmark composite score, and only benchmark scores for each individual test. We've estimated a composite target for students based on the individual test benchmark scores, and the results are shown here. If a composite score of 22 or more is desired, At this time, 12% of our 11th grade students achieved that. All 9th through 11th grade students will take the ACT assessments this spring for the first time for accountability. Now that we have reviewed MOY performance results, we'd like to share more about actions that are being taken around the district to enhance learner results with our Director of Teaching and Learning, Ms. Jennifer Rice de la Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. My name is Jennifer Rice de la Sanchez, and I'm a leader here in Waukegan Public Schools Teaching and Learning Department, and I'd like to talk through a few of our immediate next steps. Our district's curricular next steps are to continue to provide and support on and around high-quality instructional materials. Explicit examples of this are our K through 5 CKLA knowledge, for 6th through 8th grade, LIFT for our ESL courses, really ensuring that there is a vertical articulation of ESL curriculum that moves well into our 9th through 12th grade. Similarly, for our Spanish language arts or our SLA curricular resources, ensuring that that is 6th through 12th grade and seamless. We will collect feedback on grade level pacing and instruction, and provide coaching on curriculum implementation. Our district's next steps around instruction are to continue providing monthly professional development and coaching, including our curriculum embedded coaches such as Carnegie coaches and Amplify coaches, to name a few. We will continue with our letters cohorts and OG training, as well as continue to focus on our student groups to target instructional needs in smaller group settings. Our district's next steps around curricular assessments are to continue to coach around effective implementation of curriculum embedded assessments, data analysis of our curriculum embedded assessments. We're also going to continue to create assessments for each of our courses in Illuminate, our board approved platform. And we will continue to provide monthly Tier 1 site visits where we're building capacity around data literacy and data analysis of instruction that is happening in the moment within each of our buildings. Thank you very much.
This is a hefty renew bag for.
That's not part of it.
Ms. Fabian?
Oh, so many questions, but I'm going to try to consolidate. One thing that I would like to see, and this might be more of a Jen question, sorry, Ms. Delroy Sanchez, is also looking at our curriculum. I see what we're going to do to support, but I also would like to have that background information on how many years have our entire school district been using certain curriculums, because I feel like that also affects obviously our scores. When you have a school that's just implementing a new curriculum for the first year, we always see that dip. So I don't know how consistent we've been district-wide using the same curriculum, number one. And for those schools that are not using EM4 or CKLA, if that is the case, looking at those scores too and seeing what we can do to support if it's a better option to move in a different direction. So that's number one, is kind of understanding, has our curriculum been consistent district-wide to even say that Tier 1 instruction is or is not effective? Because if it's Tier 1 instruction is not the same, it's not going to be effective. So that's part one, and then I have a second part to that. So I don't know if you want to answer that now or if you need to look back.
You want to update, so I think that will be perfect. What we can do visually, as we vision cast that, is to put the years that we've had it. It's feedback, really, so thank you.
And then the second part is, I thought CKLA and Dimples was also in Spanish. Is that not the case?
Correct. As far as CKLA skills or knowledge?
Both. So if we're looking at the test results and we're seeing English is CKLA and then Spanish is Taller, is there a reason we're not also looking at our dual kids CKLA in English?
We are currently, we have Taller because that has been one of our Spanish phonics. A part of our implementation plan is to review the data and to have those conversations moving into SY26, which we're currently working on. To answer your question, yes, CKLA skills is in English and Spanish. We currently just use Taller, right, as we're rolling out that implementation, but as a part of our plan, looking at it for next year. And CKLA knowledge is in both English and Spanish.
And
those results are?
I would like to just see both, only because we know once they start doing state testing and national testing, they're just in English, so that also gives us a predictor on their forecast, on their, you know, their skills in English. And then I guess just looking at our 5th grade transition too, because that seems like there's such a deep dip in that process. So what are we looking at as far as transitioning our students from 5th grade to 6th grade? Because that's just a huge dip in our numbers, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, correct. And 6th grade has been nationally, right? And so I look at it on trend of how do we continue the articulation between the curriculums and that bridge that's the last quarter. Number one is what we're looking at. How do we seamlessly support academics that are different between two buildings and students that are different to new buildings, as well as the social emotional supports, right, that go in between there and the merging of many kids across many elementary schools, as well as the summer program that supports that bridge. So those are our next steps that are a part of our plan.
So are we looking to increase the capacity for our rising 6th graders in our summer program?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and creating that is that tier 1 continuum that supports that.
And then lastly, because I know everybody else probably has a lot of questions as well, for the high school, when we're looking at more than half of the students are in need of intervention, that is totally alarming. Is it a curriculum issue? Is it a technicality of it's a new test and we're learning it? Like, how are we looking at that data to understand where is that big setback?
I definitely want to get back to you and share out also with the conversations of the high school. I wouldn't want to misspeak for them, so that's something that we can come back for.
So one of the concerns that I'm hearing from teachers, yeah.
Quick, I'm sorry, just in relation to that last question about the newness of the test, that is something that we are thinking about, but we should have some validation of that when they take the real test in spring. So if things are drastically different, then we'll start to wonder about what happened in the fall. But that's part of the reason why we do it in the fall, to give them some exposure to it before they take it.
Teachers have had feedback saying that it was difficult to administer because they didn't have, you know, certain supplies or didn't have certain training, then you're able to adjust from here to the actual test.
That's a hypothetical question, or
Yeah.
that's feedback that, okay.
Well,
I
I'm
was gonna
saying,
say,
like,
I
did
have not
teachers
heard
give
that.
any feedback?
No.
It's just huge.
I know. I think what they're saying is, and we all know this. So they took it in the fall, and they may not have, which was actually a lead into my question. So you can maybe elaborate, Dr. Brown. But this is for all of the tests. With the MOI data, is that there's a lack of alignment between the test and when students see the content in the curriculum. So is that something that we're running into, meaning that the students are being tested on something which, based on our new pacing guide, they haven't even been introduced to, and
That won't be the case for Tier 1 at all, because that's directly related to what they were just learning. For the pre-ACT, that was given in the fall, but that's a general assessment. So yes, it's not directly related to what they were taught at that particular time, but that's the nature of the ACT. Same thing with NWEA. It's not related to directly what they were being taught at that time, but it's intended to be a general math and reading assessment.
Going back to that, because even sitting in this meeting and going through all of the different assessments, how do we combat test fatigue? Because we have certain times in which our students are testing for 3 and 4 days at a time.
That is something that we do have to take seriously. I mean, even just now, we're in the middle of our English learner assessment. We're trying to end that so that we have a break before we move to the next state assessment that's about to happen in March. And then right after that, another one happens in April. So when we look at it that way, it's happening back to back to back, and yes, that is happening, but I don't know how else to say it. If I'm at my school and I'm trying to schedule at my school, I have to think about it in terms of my 5th graders are going to do it at the beginning of February, and I don't want them to have to touch another test until later on in mid-March or end of March, and I have to space it out as best that I can, because these are required assessments. On the other side, in an ideal world, if we're really talking about trying to measure student success and do it as efficiently as possible, when we get our Tier 1 to work the way that we want it to work, and we are confident that when students are performing well in these different curricula, that it's going to translate to that same type of performance on the state test, then we may not have a need for that middle of the road interim assessment, and that would be a way for us to alleviate some of the testing that's needed. But we're at the beginning stages of that.
I'll go to, I guess, to piggyback off of Ms. Fabian, and I'm going to Ms. Lindsay. I see your hand. When you bring the administration back, we talked about some of it here, and I'm going to echo my senior board member or Vice President Ms. Hannah, in that there's a lot of, like, I know we're always coaching, right? Even it's a need, I recognize it, but it's also moving from coaching to implementation, right, and instruction, and then also what are we going to, and I'll focus on the high school, so I know you said you didn't want to misspeak, but when we get data and information, which is how are we changing and shifting practice, right? How are we implementing interventions? Because if I see that 50% of my freshmen are not where they need to be, it was great that the freshman on track rate increased, but what I want to be as a board member is not to say, because I don't want to come off as callous, and I'm doing that as important as insensitive. I took the strength finders. My 38 strength is empathy. So sometimes like it doesn't always land the way that I wanted to. These numbers don't surprise me because these numbers have been what these numbers have been. And so while alarming and while slight increases that I want to celebrate, even with that, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Brown, you've trained me enough to know that when we're talking about 3rd grade to 3rd grade, just like Ms. Rice just said, these aren't the same kids. So the fact that they grew by 6%, I don't know what they did in 2nd grade. So
that's a good point, but specifically for this presentation, we were taking the same kids.
Same group of kids.
Right, that's
perfect. So that's what I would have. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
understand that, and to me, it wasn't clear in the presentation.
It used to be that grid.
Yeah, the grid. That's all I was looking for.
And that means that I didn't do a good job of explaining that.
No worries. So that makes me. It makes me feel a little bit better. But what I want to do, Superintendent, is when we get this information, what are we doing? And there was some of this in the presentation, but what the board wants to see is like very specific things. Because if I have kids that are taking the ACT, in what, a month? Are they taking it in March or April? So they're taking it in April. What are the ACT prep sessions? How many students are participating in the ACT prep sessions is because it is a new test from the SAT. So kids that had been exposed to the PSAT are now having to switch to the ACT, and there's going to be a learning curve. And so to me, that's the level of sophistication that we need to get to, where yes, we know this information, but what are we doing with the information? Because that's the expectation that we have for the teachers, right? Is that when you do the assessments, you're changing practice in order to be able to improve outcomes.
So what we can do is come back with a specific presentation on the high school where we can take a deeper dive into what those numbers look like and what we're doing to prepare for the transition from the SAT to ACT, so we can bring that back.
Ms. Lindsay?
Board President, you hit a lot of notes that I was going to touch on, because I even wrote down, like, the data is to target what levers we need to pull on, right? And I understand that, like, there is some newness with the curriculum, so there is going to be some adjustment period, and I get that. And these aren't new numbers, so I understand the numbers, but I'm more focused on the solutions to match with it. And I'm just going to keep harping on intensive reading programs for our students that are in these red zones for the summer. I get that we're not going to pull them out for chunks of the day for hours on end, rotating teachers so that it feels fun and inserting games so that it's fresh, but working and drilling down on those skill sets during the school year. I don't think ISB would be very happy with us, even though that's what the student really needs. But I'm going to harp again on making a plan toward intensive, strictly reading camps, because we are battling so many different facets that are impacting these kids, right? And I want the focus to be more support, not like banging down like our kids aren't doing great. Like, they've got a lot going on and there's a lot of cards stacked against them. But to Board President's part, it is what are we doing to adjust to their need to close that gap. It is middle of the year data. We've had several presentations, at least I as a board member think this is like our second, I believe it feels like our third talk on it, and it usually dips with middle of the year as it is, right, to the various points that brought up. But just knowing the tangibility of everything, like what is actually happening. After that word salad, can you help us understand a little bit better when you talk about the Spanish language arts? You said vertically aligned. I feel that's very jargony.
Sure.
And while a lot of this presentation may feel very overwhelming for some people that are not as familiar with it, can you help me understand what you mean by vertically aligned?
Sure.
Because that's one part where I'm like, cool.
Sure, yes. And just thinking about any vertical jump that it's going up, right? And so I think this even lends itself to the example of 5th grade to 6th grade, just with math. EM4 curriculum, then to Carnegie.
Okay.
In that case.
So the programs need to
Yes.
build on top of each other.
That's right. And
Okay.
or if they aren't the same program, it's ensuring that it's aligning to our literacy vision.
Okay.
It's knowledge building.
Yeah.
It has this. It has that vocabulary development, right? And really making sure that they have those pieces. So specifically for SLA and for ESL. In middle school, our students that are in our dual language program, they're taking an ESL curriculum all 3 years. And what we're using right now, first year of it, is it's called LIFT. I cannot remember all of the words of the acronym. And so what it really hones in on is reading, writing, speaking, and listening, exactly the supports that they need for English language development. When the students are leaving 8th grade, they're now going to high school, and high school teachers that work in their professional learning communities, they're working on their curriculum throughout that aligns to their final exam, that aligns to their curriculum embedded assessments, and they aren't necessarily working with 8th graders, right? And no fault, but those are the things that we are really working on that coordination of, to make those things fit and align from that balcony view. That's really where we come into play, because they're in it, we see it here. How do we get that so that students are receiving instruction for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it's more seamless when they go into 9th grade? Therefore, the language is the same, the scaffolds are the same. On our end, the professional development becomes similar, and it's easier for us to coach around the professional development and bringing the staff together. And then the assessments are there because they're all in Illumina. Now we're starting to see those assessments and how students are progressing. And the ultimate goal is that now those assessments are showing in their access scores. And we're seeing more students that are exiting, right? And that syllabi literacy is improving when we have those ultimate end goals. That's one example for just ESL. The same students that receive ESL, they also receive Spanish language arts. That curriculum, as well as that what we're looking at, is that it is from 6th through 8th grade, as well as through high school, that same piece that has that articulation that moves vertically up. And so it's quite similar when we're reviewing a curriculum that we did for K-5. They're doing the same thing within this. They have teachers' input. We just saw last week the folks, they put their hands on it. They're using a rubric, and they have that agency for it.
Okay. Thank you for the expanding on that. There's only 3 more things. Hopefully 2 are really fast, and I think 1 is more just a comment. But for when we talk about the dual language students in the scores that you had presented, are those inclusive of our native English speakers in the dual language program, or is it solely the native Spanish speakers that are driving those dual numbers?
Solely.
Yeah, because we have 2 different dual pathways. We have the 2-way and we have the 1-way. So if that's just assessing the 1-way dual, I want to make sure we're clear with the community on that.
Yes, just the 1-way dual, with the exception of the knowledge curriculum assessments.
Yeah.
Because those go both ways, those are in there.
Great. And then you made a comment about the dual language program at the middle schools. It was my understanding that the students just get a marker on their record that they're dual language students, and they have some classes in Spanish and some classes in English. So not necessarily a dual language program, they're just receiving.
They do, they receive, and many of them receive different supports just based on their need. I wouldn't be able to speak to if they're TPI, TBE, right? However, absolutely, when it comes to the curriculum, we have a content language allocation that we follow year by year, in which in 7th grade their math is in Spanish, and 8th grade it's in English. So there's a very clear plan for that for students that are still in the program and not exited, in which I believe that can ultimately cover the umbrella. They're still in the program of their bilingual program.
So can you clarify that? Because my understanding was that if they are in dual, they're not exited unless their parents would like them to be exited. That's the point.
Oh yeah,
of
exited dual. When I say exited, I mean exited the access.
The access testing,
yes,
but
ma'am.
not exited out of the program.
That's right, of course.
So dual is not a set
When
curriculum.
they exit
it's
access,
that they're learning both.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are getting some classes in Spanish, like science and Spanish, social studies and English, that is considered dual because they're still being taught by literacy.
By literacy.
But I just wanted to make sure that we're not exiting them out of the
No, I appreciate
program.
that. I wouldn't even thought about that when saying exit. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, and then my comment. Unfortunately, because we are impacted by multi-facets, being in a lower socioeconomic community, we are burdened with the fact that we have to do more assessments for our kids. But large set of assessments, I think, can go all the way back to No Child Left Behind back in my old day. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's been the trend in education in this American system, but I mean, we would need a larger change for that. Go ahead.
So a couple of things. One, to Mr. Ewing's point of the being specific on what we're providing, I see a lot of PD and onus and accountability on the teachers, but I think I would also like to see, to Brandon's point, what are we doing for the students, how much more tutoring, but I would also like to see what are we doing for the parents? How are we engaging parents and explaining to them the importance and all the tools? Because we've said it several times here, we have all of these apps and programs. And how well are we communicating that out to our families, that those are free apps and programs that they can use at home to help advance their students. So I would like to see that as well. As far as the broader conversation, I was going to bring it up during my board member time, but we are at ISB, the superintendent and our chief, Dr. Kamako Patterson, they're doing listening tours right now. So if we're all concerned about state testing and the accountability and all of that assessment, that right now is going on. And if you look, and I wrote it down because I knew I was going to forget, the listening tours are going on all around the state in person, but you can still email essa@isb.net to give them your feedback. And if you go on to isb.net, you will see the presentation for the redesign on systems and supports and assessment and accountability. And that's what they're looking at, is what are the new proficiency definitions and using clear criteria to define each category for the schools when we get our designations, and using new and accurate data. So if we are concerned about assessments at large and how we're using that, and our superintendent at the state level has been very clear that he feels like it needs to be an overhaul because Illinois does have ridiculously high proficiency standards. So
Can I
just
add
letting
to
people
that?
be aware.
Keep in mind, though, that all of the state assessments that we do are pretty much from the federal government, and those are those requirements. But our state has done a good job of moving the ball for us with ACT, because now the science portion of ACT will count in place of our ISA assessments, which was a separate assessment that took a little bit longer to do. So we're thankful for them narrowing that down. But these are federal assessments. If we really want to see, if the federal government is not going to change that, it's really going to be up to us to become very, very good at how we assess at the local level, and how reliable our data is, and how well, again, our tier 1 is run, so that we don't have to rely on too many outside.
Well, and I get, so that's why you're writing to ESSA, because ESSA is that federal law, but it's, each state gets to provide their business rules on how they follow that. So to be clear, it's, the recommendation to ISB is not going to be get rid of all of the state testing, because we can't, but to look at that presentation and look at those business rules and see how they can be changed in order to more accurately reflect what our students are doing.
Ms. Anna.
Okay. Are we teaching our kids general education, or are we teaching toward the assessments?
Can you elaborate as far as what you mean by general education? Is it the state standards?
General education. I often wonder about that. If we are teaching our students how to take an assessment, the stuff that's going to be on the assessment versus general education.
So the skill sets that the assessment should be.
Yeah, because we should be teaching our children about general education, so that it doesn't matter what tests they take, they'll be able to pass it, because we're teaching general education knowledge. And we're not just teaching them how to take that test.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. We're teaching the general education. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, you're teaching Common Core standards is what you're saying, right? I want to be really clear
Yes.
for
Yeah,
the public because
please.
so can you explain that, Jen? Because that could be taken
Got it.
in different
Assessments are
contexts.
Each grade level has a set of standards that they need that the students need to be taught, married with content.
Yes, I
The
know.
curriculum that we use, which you know very well, if we just even think about K through 5, just with your question, as far as a knowledge building curriculum, we teach the curriculum that's aligned to the standards.
Yeah, and again, I think this is the age-old question. So, Ms. Hannah, you're not wrong, right? Is you're teaching to the standards. When they take the assessments, the questions that they see on the assessments should be based, right, on the standards. Some of the tests are normative also, which we know how that is because you're assessing our students against all the students in that grade band. And as we talked about just in the fall with our beginning of year data, is our kindergartners came in behind, right, where the rest of the individuals were. No fault of their own, no fault of Waukegan Public Schools. They never even been here. But it's a normative test. And so how do we solve for that? What Ms. Hannah is expressing is a frustration that I think many people have, and you've heard me say it from this dais, is we want our scores to improve, and I'm all for accountability. But sometimes the way that we speak about accountability when we don't have a shared language can come across as because for years, most Americans have an 8th grade reading level.
6th grade.
Well, say-
6th grade, you're being
I'm
generous.
nice when I say 8th, right?
Let's
And-
be accurate.
but so you say 6, so most have a 6, and so what we're telling our kids is that because they may be in the 12th grade and reading at an 11th grade level, that they are behind, right? And somehow that makes them, So to Ms. Hannah's point is, can they? What I think you're saying, and I don't want to put it in the words in your mouth, right, Ms. Hannah?
Yeah.
Is can they read? Can they write? Can they function in society after they leave Waukegan
Right.
Public Schools?
Absolutely.
And so I think what we want to do is continue to have that broader conversation when we have all these assessments, and make sure that we start to develop a shared language so that when we're having these conversations, it's not our kids are failing or our teachers are failing or the administration is failing or somehow the community is substandard when, again, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but when we understand all of the things that are impacting our students.
Right.
So
We just need to find the best ways to combat it.
yeah, we do have to combat it, right? I want our students to achieve the best that they can. But again, and I say this all the time, is Waukegan's told we're wastefully spending when we only spend 83%, 80% of what it takes to teach a student in the state of Illinois. And then we have school districts that are down the street and they spend 200% of adequacy. And then we wonder why the outcomes are disparate, right? So that's me getting off my soapbox and saying that.
I'm gonna jump on it and say change the tax structure.
Well, yeah. What I did want to say was pick up on something that Mrs. Sabecki said, and I think Ms. Lensing and the superintendent, is I do think that our students, and I'm sure it's happening, so when the report comes back from the high school, understand and stress the importance of the ACT, while I understand that many schools may be moving away from it as a lucid mission. Many schools have not. And our students and parents have to understand what that minimum score is that they want to see. And I think you put it on there, was it 22% now? I think that moved up from.
That's an estimate for now. The state is going to do their, sorry. That's an estimate for now, just a rough goal. The state is going to do standard setting to where they say, this is the minimum that you need for accountability, and it's going to be related in some way to, it's going to be it better be a meaningful goal that they set. They're going through a really nice process to do this. So it should be meaningful, that will translate to further education. It will say something about a student when they graduate, where they can go next.
Yeah, I think that's important. And so as we have these conversations and getting ready for the test, and we look at things like how many students are participating in ACT study sessions, if they understand the importance and the significance of it, and the parents understand the importance and significance of it, then they can help us as a school district make sure that their students are participating and involved. So thank you.
Community members
Can I just,
are helped.
Dr. Brown, can I just suggest that you also look at, because ACT is not new to the state, and so there were goals previously, and so I'm hearing 22, but my recollection was that it was 21. I may be wrong. But you don't have to answer. Just
We
look
did
at that,
round
because
up.
that may, I know, I probably figured you rounded up, but I think there's some guidance out there, so I can't see the state moving that far from where they were previously, but, I mean, they could, right?
So are we saying that instead of, never mind. Like, are we referring to the 19.5 or we're referring to something separate?
It's going to be different because we have to have an ELA score and we have to have a math score. And they're saying that the ELA score is going to be, it's going to consist of the reading test, the English test, and the writing test. And in some way, they're going to combine those scores.
Got it.
We don't know what the scale is going to be because the writing test is not on the same scale as the others. So we don't know what that's going to look like.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I got one other last comment, okay? The, looking at the data, right? And it concerns me a lot, and Ms. Wright, you know this, and literacy people know this, that we're working well with our elementary kids, okay? But we cannot forget our middle school and our high school students. The data, the red at the high school level is like this. And we have got to, we got to focus on getting that red down at the high school level. And even though we understand the importance of early education, right? But those students up here at the high school level, they're not getting everything that the elementary kids are getting now. And we're leaving them behind because they're going to be put out into the work world, and they're still not going to be prepared. And so we need to do a little bit, a lot more focusing on those upper grades, okay? And because those are the ones that are, well, when those little ones get up there, they're going to be okay. What about the ones that are there now? And I've been harping on it, and I've been harping on it, that we have got to do something to catch those older students.
Yeah,
Thank you.
were you going to speak, President?
No, if you want to respond, just to, I think that's Ms. Hannah's point, is to
No,
make sure
we'll
more supports.
keep sharing the updates on our implementation that really does speak to middle school and high school, and we'll keep going from there.
Mr. McBride.
Well, anyway, to Ms. Hannah's point, she was speaking about the high school, but I'll get back to the elementary in a minute. I think that before we even get to this point, kids will let you know where they're at throughout the year. I see it all the time. When you're not turning your assignments in, when you're cutting classes, when you ain't come to school, you got guidance counselors. You get pulled in, and you get targeted way before you get to the point of disaster. And I think that's one way to correct what Ms. Hannah is talking about. On the other hand, Brandon said it's a whole lot of elements that impact our students from learning, and he's right. And when you come home, you should have somebody sitting down helping you, but if the person that you got sitting down helping you is not even quite efficient as you are educated, you're not going to get that. So and you putting what you're doing as far as instructing teachers and whatnot, I think you ought to put that on your plate too, in terms of what can you do better to help our students. I mean, in terms of, I don't know if they get to the library or extra reading. I hear people talking about, some of these boards are talking about, but I just think those things are missing when we're looking for our kids to be sufficient in academics. If you don't have the support you need from home, we can do all with our curriculum. We can give them all the curriculum in the world, but once again, if you don't have what you need at home to help you with that curriculum, you're going to miss out, and you're going to always come up short. So I'm saying to you that look in those areas. What can we do to help the parents, to help our kids when they get home, to help them achieve the assignments that's given to them that they have in order to get to the point to be able to pass the SAT course. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
All right. We do have for your report there for information, 19A, Old Business Board Policy 6046, Prohibition Against Bullying. This is a second reading.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the revisions to Board Policy 6046, Prohibition Against Bullying, as presented for second reading.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fabian. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I had a question, and I'll just try to keep it brief, because I don't know if it really fits within this policy, because this policy, I feel like I'm talking, this policy targets like student bullying, and I feel that like even in the first entrance of the statement, it's we don't tolerate it at all in this district, and it applies to everyone. So, and we can approve it now and look to add on to it later to not hinder the alignment with ISB, and I know some contact information is in there. But are we looking to apply this to staff and parents as well, because they're part of the district as well?
Absolutely.
Or are we going to consider having a separate policy to address that?
We have a whole section of policies on personnel. If the board would like something in that regard, or for us to look at where that is and make suggestions, I would recommend doing it within the personnel policies and separate from the student dedicated policies.
Yeah, because I was like looking at it and I was like, I'm probably going to mark all this up and Kathy's going to come up with something different. Okay, so yeah, I'll take that as a takeaway to kind of look to see where I think it fits, and I'll coordinate with you, Kathy, just to make sure that we don't have bullying in the workplace.
That would be fine. I would also please include Mr. Figueroa.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Just really
Go ahead, Ms. Fabian.
If we do approve, having a plan to share this out with families, again, it's very important that they understand the school code on what bullying is, the definition of bullying, because I think it's just used so frequently for instances that are not necessarily bullying, and then families get really upset when we're not speaking the same language. So it's to what you just said earlier, when we don't have the same vocabulary and definition, we're not speaking the same language, there's a lot of miscommunication, and that's where a lot of misunderstanding comes from. So if we do approve, if we can come up with a communication plan and some sessions, what bullying is versus harassment, et cetera, so we're all speaking the same language.
It's a good idea.
No, I don't want to hold the policy. I'm just saying if we approve it, we need to inform our parents of what's been updated and what the definitions are.
Yeah.
Because there's wide ranges to that too. Because there's some instances where it doesn't have to be repeated offensive. It's egregious enough in a one time to be bullying. So like having examples, yeah. Well, and most of the time, yeah, it has to be pervasive, but there can be instances where it's just one time and it's still bullying. So I think having clear examples, like tangible scenarios or vignettes for our families to kind of like relate to or connect with could be helpful.
Yep. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Policy is approved. All right, we are now at item 21, expulsion proceeding for student number ending in 758.
All right. Whereas following a building level investigation, student XXX758 was determined to have possessed a weapon while at school, which under the school code requires a mandatory referral for expulsion for a period of at least 1 year, unless modified by the superintendent, whose decision may be modified by the board, parentheses 105 ILCS 5/10-22.6D2. Whereas the Board of Education of Waukegan Community Unit School District Number 60 did receive and consider the principal's recommendation and superintendent's agreement to modify the mandatory expulsion period for student XXX758 and the reasons therefore. And whereas the modification proposed is in the best interest of the district and the student, and based on a totality of the circumstances, supports the maintenance of a safe school environment free of disruptive influences which can be a distraction to learning while continuing to hold the student accountable for the student's conduct. Now therefore it is hereby resolved that 1, the whereas clauses are adopted herein by reference as findings of the board. 2, the board concurs with the superintendent's modification of the mandatory minimum expulsion period to 2 days out of school suspension, the days already having been served, and an individualized safety plan. 3, the superintendent or the superintendent's designee is to notify the parents or guardians of student XXX758 in writing of the board's determination within the next 5 school business days. 4, the resolution is effective upon approval by the board. I motion that we approve the resolution as read.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hannah, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. Motion by Ms. Hannah, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. Oh, sorry. Ms. Lindsay motion, so then Ms. Hannah, I'll give you the second. All right. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item approved, motion carries. Board member time. It is 9:13. Do we have a score update, Mr. Alazarkas? I don't. All right. Well, while he gets that, we'll start with board member time. Ms. Fabian?
I just want to remind everybody to update their contact information. We're hearing that people aren't receiving emails or texts from the district, and likely that's because either you opted out at some point or your contact information may not be up to date. So if you aren't receiving communication, make sure that you contact your child's school secretary and get that updated, and especially your emergency contacts as well. And just real quick dates, the 13th at 7 is another Know Your Rights presentation. So you can also watch that online. February 14th, obviously, is Valentine's Day. In Spanish, it's called the Day of Love and Friendship, which I think we need more of that. But I want to remind parents to look to their school for guidance on what Valentine's treats are accepted or not. I'm especially looking at our healthy foods policy. And then the 17th is President's Day, but there will be the HBCU experience. It's also Random Acts of Kindness Day, but I would hope people extend that day to the year because we just need them. And then February 19th with the diverse learners, there will be 2 Zoom presentation, one at 6:30 and one at 7:30 in Espanol. For the functioning behavior assessments and the BIP plans or the behavior intervention plans, and those are so that's very important information for families to really learn and be involved and engage with their child's education. So I know that was a lot of dates, but again, these are being text messaged and emailed to you and on the district's website.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay?
I was preparing and my name wasn't called. Apologies. I wanted to just expand. I'm glad you brought up the dates. The Know Your Rights, I know there may have been some confusion with some of our community members. It's for everyone, and if you want to be in person, it is at Miguel Juarez, so you can join us there. Double check socials in case anything changes based on weather, but I don't anticipate that being a problem. One thing that is also on my mind is we are adapting to things as they come in terms of at the federal level. I wonder, and this is a question for legal, so Ms. Vanderbroek, I don't know with the upcoming changes that may happen. With regard to immigration, do we need to double check for any of our international teachers and make sure that this coming year there's not going to be any hiccups? Do we have to look to see if we need immigration lawyers to just make sure that we're all squared away in that respect? And if it's a takeaway, that's totally fine.
I can look into that. We do have an immigration attorney who assists with those staff
beautiful.
being onboarded, so we can check with her.
Okay, great. That would be fantastic. That's just been on my brain. And I'll just end with, like, it's a lot right now. It's okay to take some time to breathe. Exactly. It's a lot. Right. So if you could just, to Ms. Fabian's point, show some extra kindness. We don't know what anyone's really going through, especially with some of the escalations lately. Just extend some kindness and some grace to your fellow community. And if you need help, the district does have the Wraparound Center for some services, but you don't know if you don't ask. So I encourage you to take time for yourself, take care of your family, and find some peace.
Ms. Ann?
Okay, first things first. Board members, calling all board members. I talked with the superintendent earlier about us. I'm gonna call it maybe an experiment, okay? And spoke with board president, and I'm hoping that we could do this. As you all know, summer school is coming, right? And I know that Evanston High School, they did it for their summer school last summer. And I'm asking if we could do it with our summer school this year, okay? And we only have, Brandon, what did you say, half a day?
It's, yeah, half-day program, right, 4 days.
No, they extended it. It's going to be longer.
Longer, but what?
Longer.
Okay, but anyway, here's my ask. Can we not have the cell phones in the classroom? I'm not saying they can't bring their phones to school, but they can't have them in the classroom.
Don't some schools do that with the Yonder?
With the what?
Some of our schools use that Yonder pouch, so the kids bring their cell phones, they put it in a pouch, it's locked, and only the teacher can unlock it.
I don't know. Do we use that here?
Yeah, we do. Some schools do.
Well, anyway,
Maybe we could just use that same for summer school.
For summer school, I'm looking for input because we got to get the cell phone thing kind of under control inside the classrooms. They can have the phones, but they cannot have the phones in the classroom. And we already have that in our policy where they can't have it in the classroom. It's already there, but it's not being enforced. And so I am asking if we can say that no, for summer school at this point, that no phones will be allowed inside the classroom. And I am just hoping that we can get concurrence for us to do that, just to see how it benefits the students, because they interviewed some students from Evanston, and there's other schools that are taking this on too, and the students are loving it. I think they have forgotten what it's like to go in a classroom and not have their phones. And so the reports, the students are saying that they like it without the distraction, and those were the terms that they were using, that they don't have all the distractions.
So if we're using it in some buildings, maybe the ask would be to look at the data from the buildings that are using it currently. Because if we know that they're being utilized, maybe we can look at the survey that you're talking about that other school districts did, and implementing that same survey with students using the Yonder pouches now.
Well, and that's good. That's good. That's good. But I'm hoping we can do it for the summer, for summer school, because that's how Evanston began doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't thrust it for the whole year. They kind of piloted it during the summer.
The only caveat I would add to that, though, is that if it's in the IEP that the student needs to have their phone on them for medical emergencies, I know some diabetics have it because they have an implanted sugar insulin monitor.
Right.
So
And
if
those-
there's,
they're-
if
those are the exceptions.
right, and I just wanted to make it clear that we would follow an IEP.
Yes, those are exceptions.
Or 504.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, again, if that's something that the board wants to explore, we definitely could come back, like sooner rather than later. So I know you have, I don't have any issue with it in general and as a pilot, but we wouldn't be able to act on it this evening. But if we can discuss it and understand the implications, then maybe something that we want to do. We love a pilot.
And I got one more. And then we have a local chiropractor that wants to do come into the district to do volunteer assessments and alignments on a volunteer basis. And I passed off, I think I gave the chiropractor Mr. Moulton's number, and so he actually was here in the audience tonight, and so I think it's good. I'll swear by a chiropractor, so. But anyway, yeah. And the other thing, last thing, please be careful tomorrow. The weather will be okay in the morning, but that afternoon, evening commute is going to be very, kind of dangerous. And I just want everybody to be safe. And I don't know what we are, Superintendent, you all are planning on doing for that. I know that Gurnee has called off school, and Grace Lake, they're only going a half a day tomorrow. And I just think that, with what they're talking about, it's not that people can't drive, but it's going to be coming down so bad at dismissal time for students, and getting out on the road for staff and stuff, that we kind of maybe need to use some of those end of the year days that we have that we built into the calendar, just for safety's sake. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Mr. McBride? Ms. Gonzalez?
I just want to say happy Black History Month. I know that one of our teachers, Ayanna Bankston, she's looking for stories from Black alumni. I think her email is abankston@wps60.org. But if not, maybe just look her up because I'm not sure if that's her same email. And I do want to say that the Waukegan Schools Foundation Scholarship is open. We're going to start distributing out flyers and information out about the scholarship, and when it closes in April. So if you have any seniors who are looking for scholarship opportunities now, please have them apply, and that's it.
Sorry, can you clarify what kinds of stories from alum?
If you are a Black alum, she would like to highlight you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all, Board of Education, and to those who are still here and watching online, and those who came out this evening. Again, I'd like to reminder, making sure that all your contact information is up to date, and that you follow the district's social media and website pages for any additional information and emergency school closings. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. McBride. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.